Hello, and welcome to the annual Intelligence Day webinar of the Nordic Mensa Fund. My name is Janne Sylvest. I'm the chairperson of the Nordic Mensa Fund, and I will be the moderator of today's webinar. We have an exciting program today, but before we go on to our speakers, I will just say a few words about the Nordic Mensa Fund for those of you who don't already know this. We are a foundation set up to support research into human intelligence, and realizing one of the three purposes of Mensa, which I'll come back to. This is a joint project between the national Mensa associations of Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. And formally, we are an independent legal entity registered in Sweden, and we have been active since 2020. This is our third webinar, so we are getting up to speed and having lots of activities and grants being given. But just to go back to the purpose of the fund, Mensa has three overall purposes, which are to identify human intelligence, to encourage research into intelligence, and to provide a stimulating environment for their members. And we in this fund are on this planet to realize the second purpose, which is to encourage research. And this is why the purpose of the foundation is exactly that. We cover many aspects: physical, medical, psychological, sociological, and educational aspects of intelligence and the human brain. And our previous webinars have addressed different aspects of this. Today, we're focusing on intelligence, which is a subject, or sort of on education, which is a subject that is close to the heart of many Mensa members, which I know from personal experience. I will now ask for donations if you would like to support the fund. We have some basic funding from the national associations of the different Mensa countries, but we can always do with more money. So if you would like to donate to the Nordic Mensa Fund, you can either pay by credit card or bank transfer. If you have your phone on the ready, you can use this QR code. Otherwise, you can go to our website, nordicmensafund.org, and look in on the part of the webpage that has to do with donations. And you may even be so lucky as to get one of these beautiful little pins that we are showing the picture of here today. So today's program, we have two speakers today. We have Dr. Taina Makkonen. She's a lecturer in physics and chemistry and a teacher educator at the University of Helsinki in Finland. And she will be talking about transforming giftedness into talent, research results on gifted physics students in Finland. And Dr. Makkonen was a recipient of one of the Article of the Year awards in 2022. We also have Janne von Börtzell-Szuch. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She's a doctoral candidate and a PhD student at the University of Stockholm, and she will be talking about reading instruction to stimulate advanced readers in elementary school, case studies in different contexts. Actually, Diana will be the first to speak, and if you are logged into YouTube while watching this live, you can post comments and questions, and we will try to answer some of those along the way. But first, I will give the floor to Janne von Börtzell-Szuch, and she will start her presentation, and then we can take questions afterwards. Here you go, Diana.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
We can, yes.
Perfect. Well, Thank you for inviting me to this webinar, and thank you to the Mensa Nordic Fund for the grant that I received in December 2023 for one of my doctoral research projects that I will present today. It's a project in progress. My name is Diana von Börtzell-Szuch, and I am a PhD student at the Department of Special Education at Stockholm University. And I am 1 out of 10 doctoral students in a research program for giftedness. And it's run in collaboration between 3 universities, Karlstad University, Mälardalen University, and Stockholm University. And the overall objective for the research school is to develop scientific knowledge in the research area on provisions for advanced students in inclusive educational settings. And my research interests are advanced literacy skills and how literacy instruction in elementary and middle school can be designed to meet educational needs of students with such skills. So why is this research area important? Well, UNESCO states that literacy skills empower individuals to access lifelong learning opportunities, why individuals' development of literacy skills is crucial for both the individual and also the society. And the Swedish Education Act stipulates that all children should have the opportunity to learn and to attain their full potential, and a lifelong aspiration to learn should be cultivated as well. If we look at the international assessments of reading among 10-year-olds and compare the results for Sweden between the years 2016 and 2021, we can see that the top achieving students at the 2 higher achieving levels, advanced readers and high achieving readers, that group in total has decreased since 2016. And a couple of years ago, the Swedish School Inspectorate did a quality review in Swedish grade 4 classes. And the results tells, among other things, that advanced students are easily overlooked in the Swedish school setting. For example, there are few discussions on how to design instructions adequately for these students, and that the conditions for providing teacher support on how to meet the educational needs of advanced students often is missing in the Swedish school. If we look at the previous research within this area, it tells that there is a range of 9 to 11 years in reading comprehension in elementary school in grade 3 to 5, both between schools, but also could be in the same classroom. So teachers, they will meet a lot of different reading levels at the earlier years of school. And also, students with advanced reading skills often encounter the same reading instruction as struggling and average readers do. So they will often already know the content in the instruction. So they're left often with none or little support through the earlier school years. And this will lead to a risk of less reading development during the school year for advanced readers than for average or struggling readers, because often the instruction focus in reading will be on the struggling readers. And there is also research telling that advanced readers actually develop more during the summer break than they will do during the academic year. Also, previous research indicates that a differentiated reading instruction, and that will be a reading instruction meeting each and every individual at his or her level, have positive effects on advanced readers' reading development, reading enjoyment, and also reading engagement. But before I continue, I would like to stop a little bit and talk about how can you define reading. So this is a model that it's not to be seen as a full theory, but it's supposed to be seen as an illustration of a number of components that together, when mastered, will illustrate skilled reading. And this rope, it consists of 2 strands, a strand of language comprehension and a strand of word recognition. And the strand of language comprehension, that consists of background knowledge, what the reader already knows about the topic in the text to be read, and vocabulary, for example, how deep is your vocabulary within this topic, and language structures such as syntax or semantics, helping the reader to reread and discover the necessity to reread if something is being misread during the reading of the text, for example. And also verbal reasoning, the individual's ability to make inferences or understand metaphors, for example. And also the individual's literacy knowledge, and that could be things like genre knowledge, to know how to read the specific text in front of you, because you read different genres in different ways. And the other strand consists of word recognition and components such as phonological awareness, to be able to discriminate the different sounds, the phonemes in the language, for example, and decoding, knowing the alphabetical principle, the letter sound correspondence, or the spelling sound correspondence, for example, and also sight recognition of familiar words to make, especially in the beginning of your reading development, to make it easier to decode the text. And these two strands, they interact with each other, and they are of equal importance. So the model, it emphasizes development and change over time, where the strands will influence and interact with one another. So word recognition will become increasingly more automatic, and language comprehension will become increasingly more strategic. And skilled reading is viewed as fluent execution and coordination of word recognition and text comprehension. So this is one way to describe what reading is and what different components that the reader is sort of leaning on while reading. And what are then the characteristics of advanced readers? Well, here are some examples of that. So, and this is among, for example, middle school or elementary school readers. So they will read 2 or more grade levels above the accurate grade level. And they will use an automatic integration of background knowledge on the topic in the text and experience during reading. And he or she will also demonstrate a goal-oriented reading. They will know why they read this text. And they can also recall and understand advanced concepts in the text being read and make additional connections during reading. And connections could be connections to self or connections to other texts or to the world, for example. They will also demonstrate a deep understanding of subletities and being able to make inferences or construct a global meaning of the text. What's the main takeaway in this text? And they will also demonstrate advanced cognitive skills, such as to analyze texts or to comprehend hidden meanings, for example. And also they will adapt reading strategies according to the text passage's different demands on the readers. If they judge that this paragraph, for example, is more important for my goal with the reading pace will actually be slower. It will go down. And then when the reader judges that this part is not as important for my goal with this reading, the reading pace will go up and increase. So he or she will adapt the reading strategies during reading. And also an advanced reader will demonstrate curiosity in texts and also motivation to read, and for example, also make time to read. One of the research questions that I posed in the study that I will present is, what are grade 4 teachers' perceptions and experiences of the school-wide enrichment model reading framework after introducing this model? So here's like an overview of the study that I am in the middle of. It's called Reading Instructions. Let's see. Among advanced readers in elementary school, case studies in different contexts. So I have 2 participating schools in 2 different types of demographic areas. So there's Park School and Meadow School. And in one school, there's 1 teacher participating with 2 classes, and in the other school, there are 2 teachers participating with 2 different classes. And in total, there are an amount of 35 participating students, equally divided between the 2 schools. The inclusion criteria for the teachers were that they were teachers in either Swedish or Swedish as a second language and had that in their education, and also that they were teaching in grade 4. And the inclusion criteria for the students were that there were grade 4 students in one of the participating teachers' classes, and that both the student and the student's parents had consented to participate in the study. The project started with a professional development lecture, and that was being held for all the teachers at respective schools. And it contained like a repetition or an overview of reading and writing development among children. And then a section of characteristics of advanced readers and advanced writers, to be followed by a section on the model being introduced in these 4 classes. And the model was tested during 12 weeks. And during these 12 weeks, they had also access to me as a coach. They could either email me or phone me, or I could come and observe, and then we could have a talk, and I could support them in how to implement or introduce this model and how to work with it. They also had a teacher guidebook describing the model thoroughly. Also, thanks to the grant that I received from the Nordic Mensa Fund, they were able to buy books to extend their classroom libraries, which was really appreciated. So the books that they bought, they were supposed to be targeting especially advanced readers and quality literature in a great variety of genres, and also styles, to be as interesting as possible for the respective classes. I conducted observations, and after the project was finished, I interviewed the teachers, and this is only regarding to this interview question because there were also other things going on. The model being tested, it's based on 3 legs. The first leg is the zone of proximal development by Vygotsky, and which says that the proximal zone to learn and to develop is in the zone where you can do something you cannot do on your own, but you can do together with a mentor or a teacher or a more competent peer, for example. And after having that support, you can do it on your own later on. It's also based on the scientific knowledge on reading and writing development and instruction to be, efficient instruction, and also on Renzulli and Ray's pedagogy for talent development. So this is an extension of that model, targeting especially reading. So the overarching goals of the SEM is to increase enjoyment in and attitudes about reading, and also to encourage the students to read more challenging texts, and to increase reading fluency and comprehension. Now, this model, it consists of 3 phases. And in this study, we focused the first and the second phase and not the third phase. But I will describe them, all 3 of them. So the first phase, it's about exposure to different genres and quality texts in so-called book hooks presented orally by the teacher, where the teacher will read aloud a certain section of a text that's supposed to be interesting to the students, and also to have a follow-up text talk with explicit instruction on strategies being, that the teacher has assessed is now adequate to teach to this group of students. And also to pose higher order thinking questions in relation to that text. And as a support for the teacher, he or she will have bookmarks with questions, such as high order thinking questions. It could be on themes like biography, characters, illustrations, and so on. And this, in the original model, which is being constructed in a North American school context, is now adapted to a Swedish context. So we, in this project, we did it twice a week. To start with maybe only 10 minutes, and then after the students got used to the model, to be longer and longer, maybe as long as 25 minutes at the end or toward the end of the project. And the first section is then followed by the second section, which is a daily exercise. In the beginning, maybe only for 10 minutes. And as the students can concentrate more and more on reading, it will be maybe as long as 40 minutes daily. So the second phase, it's all about training and discussions in supported independent reading, where the students read self-selected texts. And here they will have support to choose text maybe a little bit more challenging than they would normally choose. And they will have also support to choose texts at the right or, well, adequate reading level for each and every one. And during the week, the teacher will have a one-on-one teacher-student conference with each and every one. So the teacher will not have a conference every day with maybe all the 25 students in the class, but over the week, he or she will have had a conference with each and every one. And then the conference will start with that the student will read a certain, well, a part of the text out loud to the teacher, and then the teacher can assess the student's reading fluency. And after that, there will be a text talk between the teacher and the student. And the teacher has then not read the text, but will have support on questions to choose from in the teacher guiding book and the bookmarks. And those questions will be maybe on the same theme for the entire class, but they're supposed to be differentiated and chosen specifically for this student. And then the third phase that we did not use in this project, but then if it's meant to be for an hour a week, where the students make their own choices based on the self-selected reading, to maybe to join buddy reading or literature circles, or maybe have a genre study and things like that. So it could be both reading and writing activities. Examples, or if a definition of lower and higher order questioning could be, for example, this one, that lower order questions could be questions like those that require responses either recalled directly from memory or cited explicitly in the text. And that's question often used in instruction, and that was the type of question that we wanted to move from. Instead, to use higher order questions, those that require more than simple recall to produce an answer. So, for example, to synthesize or make inferences or make connections, for example. And also in the whole class explicit instruction, and also in the individual conferences, self-regulated learning strategies are being taught. So it could be about behavior, to active regulate your own study environment, or the time that you can concentrate on reading, and what happens when you do not concentrate anymore, etc. And also motivational strategies, to have clear goals, to know why you're reading this text, to feel self-confident, etc. And also on thinking and cognitions, to have strategies for learning and achievement. How do you do, for example, if you cannot decode a word? What's a suitable strategy to use then? And here's an example of different bookmarks that the teacher had as a support when planning instruction for the week or the theme. So it could be, for example, that the teacher could ask the students, identify a decision or choice made by a character. Do you agree with this decision? Why or why not? Or, for example, how would you feel if you were one of the characters in the book? Explain. Or, how would the book be different if told from another character's point of view? So this is not lower order questions. This you actually have to think and have, well, based on your own opinion and based on what you've read, to be able to answer these questions. So that was what we wanted to encourage in this project. And I will present examples of preliminary findings, but I would like to stress that it's preliminary findings, and I have not conducted properly the data analysis yet, because the project finished just the same week as the summer break or started. So it's really fresh and preliminary findings. But some of the strengths that the teacher talks about in relation to this model is that they experience it to be feasible to integrate in the Swedish school context. It does not conflict with the Swedish curriculum, and it's also easy to use in the Swedish school system and in the Swedish school subject, Swedish or Swedish as a second language. And they also appreciated to have access to books at different levels and of different genres in the classroom. They thought it was easier to have a great variety of books and at different levels in the classroom, instead of having to walk to a school library, maybe at a distant area in the school, and also maybe it's not open when you read in the class, etc. So easy access was definitely something that they appreciated. And also they felt that they could have, they knew more about the books in the classroom, so they knew which book to recommend to a certain student based on their newly gained knowledge on the different reading levels that they learned that the students had in the individual conferences. They also thought that all students at all different reading levels may benefit from the model. So it was not only good for the advanced readers, but actually for all students in the class. And they expressed that they would like to continue to use this model after the project ended. So now when the autumn semester started, they actually continue to use the project, or the model. And the challenge they expressed was to ask or pose higher order questions, which signals that the support given by either a coach or a mentor, or like this guiding book, for example, is probably really important in the beginning of using a new reading instruction strategy. And by that, I would like to say thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Diana. That was very, very interesting. I think we have a couple of questions directly for you before we proceed to our next presenter, and then afterwards we will have a few sort of more cross-cutting questions. But let's see. There was one question from a viewer, very specific. Is 45 participating students considered more of a large or a small set for this type of study?
Well, this is a case study, and of course there were 4 full classes in the instruction, but only these 35 students were the ones. We did more things. We have done, or I've done, conducted interviews and also different kinds of screening tests, etc. But there were full participating classes, so there are more research questions that I presented here today. But I think that the sample or the number of participants, that's totally fine. And in this specific research question, it aimed for the teacher's perspective. This is not posed from a student perspective, but there are other research questions posed from a student perspective, but not presented today.
I was also curious just about the practicalities. What was the whole class involved in this, or did you sort of pre-select some students, and then how did you differentiate the levels of the students? Did you rely on the pre-existing knowledge of the teachers, or how is that done?
When the project started, the participating students, and that is these 35 students, not all students in these 4 classes, they conducted different screening tests, and there was one in spelling, one in vocabulary, one in reading comprehension, and one in reading fluency. So there were 4 different tests assessing different literacy abilities. And that helped me and also the teachers to assess and identify advanced readers, average readers, and struggling readers to go with the teachers' nominations of these students. So we used both teacher nominations and also the screening tests to decide that. But yes, all students participated in the instruction. So when I interviewed the teachers, they had tried or introduced the model to all, approximately maybe 100 students.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting results so far, and we look forward to hearing once you get to the more final results of the test. But also good to know that the teachers found the material so useful that they would like to continue to use it. It seems that there is a need for this kind of thing.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Well, thank you for now, Diana. We will get back to you towards the end of this webinar, and I think we will now continue on to Taina Makkonen, who will talk about transforming giftedness into talent. So, Taina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll share the screen. And can you see the slide now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Taina Makkonen, and I'm a physics teacher and a teacher educator and a teacher researcher at Viikki Teacher Training School at the University of Helsinki, Finland. And today I'm going to present some of the key results of my recent research. The title, Transforming Giftedness into Talent, refers to the famous talent development model by François Garnier, who states that giftedness is actually only the beginning. It is the potential of an individual, and continuous efforts, hard work, practicing, specific provisions, and certain personal and external factors are needed to transform giftedness into actual competencies, in other words, talents. The focus of this talk will be on 3 topics. The first addresses multiple intelligences, the second is about mindsets, and the third addresses transformational giftedness. And next, some background about why studying these topics is so important, especially in Finland and perhaps in other Nordic countries as well. First, the education of gifted students is a bit difficult issue, at least in Finland. Our school legislation does not mention gifted students. There are no definitions of giftedness, and there are no identification criteria for gifted students in Finnish schools. And consequently, serving the needs of gifted students depends heavily on individual teachers. At the same time, there is a global lack of students and experts in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the so-called STEM subjects. But careers in these fields are not attractive, even to gifted students, at least in Finland. And then there is the gender issue. A major gender difference prevails among students in their choice of educational field, with STEM fields being considerably more popular among male than female students. And the first study I will now introduce is based on Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. In short, this quite revolutionary theory questions the idea of one single intelligence that can be measured, for example, by traditional IQ tests. Instead, Gardner argues that there are at least 8 different intelligences, which can be seen here: linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and naturalist intelligence. And Gardner himself and a few other researchers have also speculated about adding more intelligences into this theory. For example, it has been suggested that the theory could include existential or so-called spiritual intelligence that kind of addresses the big questions of life. And it has also been suggested that the theory could include environmental intelligence. That is a bit broader concept than Gardner's original idea of naturalist intelligence. That is an intelligence that relates understanding structures of nature. In our study, we examined how gifted Finnish physics students self-evaluated their intelligence in these Gardner's 8 or 9 intelligence domains. And why is it important to study such a topic? It is important because we know that confidence on one's own intelligence affects one's learning achievement, and on the other hand, one's educational and career choices. And this is especially important in STEM fields, which are male-dominated, as we know. In our study, the participants were 164 academically gifted Finnish general upper secondary school physics students. That is students from 16 to 19 years of age. And they all had selected physics and mathematics in their study programs. I mean, advanced courses in physics and mathematics. And multiple intelligence profiling questionnaire was used in data collection, and statistical analyses were used to analyze the data. And here are some examples of the 35 items in that questionnaire. There were items such as, I easily make contact with other people. Even ordinary everyday life is full of miraculous things. And the participants kind of self-rated their intelligence in 9 intelligence domains through these kind of items, using a Likert scale from 1 to 5, in other words, from totally disagree to totally agree. And the results were, well, they were interesting, but also a bit frustrating, because they showed that the gender issue still prevails among Finnish students in certain domains. Namely, although female and male students had similar, very similar course grades in, for example, in physics, mathematics, and English, male students rated their intelligence higher in logical, mathematical, and spatial domains, while female students thought more positively of their linguistic and environmental intelligences. And Finland is ranked one of the world's most gender equal countries. And therefore, the result that gifted girls, intelligent girls, they underestimate their abilities in logical mathematical domain, that is quite concerning. Please remember that a person's self-evaluation of their own abilities may affect their learning achievement and their career choices. If we are going to have more students in STEM fields, we must pay attention to this issue, namely gifted girls' self-confidence in logical mathematical area. Okay, in the overall sample, the highest ratings were in environmental and spiritual domains, which implies that gifted Finnish students feel confident about understanding these kind of environmental issues, and they also want to ponder and contemplate existential topics, these big questions of life. What was not so surprising was their high self-rating in logical mathematical domain. After all, they all had chosen advanced courses in physics and mathematics. In turn, the lowest rating was in linguistic domain, which may be related to the fact that these were physics-oriented students and not language-oriented, although their grades in languages were very high as well. So, okay, let's move on to another important topic related to intelligence and learning and education, namely mindset. According to Carol Dweck's mindset theory, a person with a fixed mindset believes that intelligence is static, it's innate, and you cannot improve it. In turn, a person with a growth mindset believes that you can develop your intelligence, so it's a malleable feature. And these mindsets are very relevant in learning because they are related to people's orientation to challenges and their orientation to setbacks or feedback, and also to achievement goals they set for themselves. For example, people with a growth mindset prefer becoming smart instead of looking smart. And this becoming smart means that a person wants to learn, wants to spend effort, wants to work hard, sees challenge as a chance to develop one's abilities. And in turn, a person with a fixed mindset may view challenge as a threat, may avoid difficult tasks, and may suffer from a fear of failure. So this is very important, kind of it's there on the background on when you learn, you have to think about this kind of, the mindset is there, always there in the background. And in our study, gifted Finnish physics-oriented students, academically gifted, and also Finnish physics teachers responded to a mindset questionnaire. And basically, they were asked whether or not and to what extent people can develop their intelligence and giftedness. And here are some examples of the items in this mindset questionnaire. There were items such as, to be honest, you cannot really change how gifted you are or how intelligent you are. And the participants were asked to indicate their attitude to these items using a scale from 1 to 6. In other words, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And in these diagrams showing the main results, 6 indicates growth mindset. And the results showed that both gifted students and physics teachers had growth mindset about intelligence, but not so much about giftedness. In other words, they thought that they can develop their intelligence, but not necessarily their giftedness. The result is actually in line with previous research about mindsets. Overall, people tend to perceive intelligence as a more malleable quality than giftedness. And Professor Dweck has suggested that one reason may be that the word gifted itself refers to a gift, like something that has been given to a person. and which is thus considered static, something that cannot be changed. And regarding giftedness, teachers' mindsets were more malleable than the students. And the most malleable mindsets were found among the least experienced teachers. But overall, Finnish physics teachers seem to have growth mindsets in average, which is kind of good because, after all, teachers should believe in their students' learning capabilities. That is good in light of teacher ethics. And then I have some more results here regarding the students. Yeah, the most malleable mindsets about giftedness were found among girls and the youngest students. And similar results have been obtained in other studies in Finland and elsewhere. Gifted boys somehow seem to have fixed mindsets, or at least their mindsets are in the neutral zone, neither growth nor fixed. And also the finding that the students' mindset shift toward a more fixed direction as they grow older is likely to reflect a somewhat natural development in students during their school years. The last year, the third year of upper secondary school, is the most crucial for their future, and they compare themselves with their peers, and perhaps their self-rated belief of their own abilities may stabilize on a bit lower level in that stage. So finally, I also want to introduce you the concept of transformational giftedness, which is also a very relevant topic in the context of gifted education. It is a concept created by Robert Sternberg, and in short, transformational giftedness means using one's gifts and talents to make the world a better place, kind of to promote the common good. And it means that a transformationally gifted individual is sensitive to the needs of other people, wants to make a difference, and wants to support other people, and strives to make the change for the better. And this is a rather new perspective in gifted education, but it has already generated interest among scholars and among educators. And for example, it has been suggested that we should include this idea of transformational giftedness in the definition of giftedness in Finland, and that we should educate our children and youth accordingly. And overall, I think that this idea of supporting others fits Finnish and perhaps other Nordic societies quite well. And the third and the final study I will now shortly introduce explored how gifted physics students actualize, that is, use or utilize their physics talent in their educational and career choices. And this study was a qualitative case study, and it included 24 gifted physics-oriented students. And they participated in the interviews. And also these students had selected advanced physics and mathematics courses, as in the other two studies. And inductive content analysis was used to analyze the data. And I will now focus only on the section that examined whether the idea of transformational giftedness was manifested among these gifted students. And the participants were asked, for example, how do you think gifted individuals can use their talent in physics or other science fields? and who might benefit from such use of talent. And main results can be seen here. The majority described the opportunities of gifted people to enhance research and technological innovation. And some also mentioned advancing the quality of life, helping others understand science, and promoting better decision-making. And many students also listed domains in which the abilities of the gifted are especially needed. These included sustainable development, such as combating climate change, developing space technology, medicine, or motor technology. And most of the students, 83%, stated that it is the society or the whole of mankind that will benefit from the talents of gifted people. Some students also mentioned private companies, but in turn only 63% mentioned kind of personal gains, such as better education and higher status or higher income of gifted individuals themselves. And no differences practically were found between those students who had their career choice in science or engineering, and those students who had their career choice in other fields. And to conclude, these participants certainly showed signs of this transformational giftedness. They kind of thought that gifted people can and should use their talents and gifts to make the world a better place. And a quote from a student summarizes the view of many participants quite well. I think it is very important that people who are really gifted could do their thing because they can reach levels others can't. Then I hope they benefit the whole society. And she also gives some examples of specific issues in which the talents of gifted individuals are especially needed. And one can easily see that the idea of this transformational giftedness, promoting the common good, is very clear in this quote, for example. Okay, the findings from these 3 studies indicate that gifted students in Finland, they need support in their talent development, for example, related to their self-perception of their own abilities, their intelligences, and their beliefs of whether they can develop their intelligence and giftedness. On the other hand, they showed signs of transformational giftedness, which is a very positive finding. And there are several measures that could be taken at schools to support gifted students' learning and talent development. First, we could apply growth mindset pedagogy, which kind of means that we should value hard work, focus on learning instead of grades, and we should kind of value failure and challenge as important sources of development. It's very important to understand that also gifted students need to work hard to develop their giftedness. Otherwise, they just cannot achieve excellence. And second, gifted female students, they really need encouragement and some practical support to acknowledge their abilities in in logical mathematical domain. And we must remember that better self-confidence, for example, in these subjects, may be a crucial step for girls and students overall, that they will choose an education and career in, for example, in STEM fields. And then there was the result that students overall had high ratings in environmental and spiritual intelligence. And this kind of implies that there should be more room for curiosity and contemplation and pondering in physics lessons, for example. And fourth, the idea of this transformational giftedness, it's new, and we should do more research about that topic. There are many open questions, such as how can we measure transformational giftedness and how to educate students from such a perspective. And finally, Finland is acknowledged for its high-quality teacher education. However, gifted education is a neglected field in teacher education programs in Finland. There are no mandatory training for teachers in gifted education. And this is clearly an issue, and we should improve this situation. We must remember that serving the needs of gifted students is not only benefits the gifted students, but also the whole society. And I wish to thank you for listening. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Taina. This was very interesting and definitely with a lot of food for thought here on many different aspects. We had one question from the audience. In many circumstances, giftedness and intelligence are considered synonymous in contrast to talentedness. So intelligence and giftedness have both various definitions. How do you tackle these questions, or is it a different issue when you mean Finnish? I don't know.
yeah, it's this is a very difficult issue. Giftedness is a term that people have been trying to define it for 100 years, and I don't like to. I wouldn't like to be very specific about this. It's really, there have been books written about this issue. I could say that there are some connections between intelligence and giftedness, but I don't want to go there there now. It's a difficult issue, yeah.
No, but perhaps what you said in the beginning, where you said giftedness is the well, that was giftedness and talent. Well, we could get back to that. I also had now we're getting into very specific, because this is a specific theory question. So if this is not something you're familiar with, just please say so. But there was a question on whether you have considerations how the Cattell-Horn-Carroll theory, with its broad and narrow abilities, would sit with the sample. Is this something that you have any insights into, broad and narrow abilities?
No, I'm not familiar with that
okay.
issue. Yeah,
that's fine. Let's see. We have more questions here. Perhaps, well, actually, I had a question relating to this. I thought this growth mindset versus fixed mindsets is a very interesting consideration, because I believe it's also something that you meet in places like Mensa, and it perhaps also related to the development of talentedness. You also have some considerations about, because I think because gifted children are often not challenged in school, they sort of lose the ability to fully develop their potential because they sort of sometimes end up giving up as soon as it becomes a bit hard. Do you have any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's really something we should do something about it, because that's definitely true. And one thing is to use this growth mindset pedagogy. We can also teach children that our brains we can develop them. It's like a muscle, and we can teach the children and youth that everyone can develop their intelligence. So it's very important, and it can also it is also how teachers talk about it and how the parents talk about developing one's intelligence or one's abilities or skills. It's always there. So it's not just one thing you can do. It's many things you can do. You can show example. How do you take up challenges, or do you avoid them? And it's also what the adults do. It's important. Teachers, for example, are a good example of this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe that also, well, we can maybe discuss this more with Diana, because actually her reading things was maybe an example of that. Just going back to another question from our viewers, and perhaps this relates to the fact that in Mensa we test, intelligence, the sort of the not the multiple intelligences, but the one measure of intelligence, which I think most IQ testing does. And the question here from the audience is: do you think that IQ testing encourages the growth mindsets, or the opposite, or neither?
Oh, what a question! That is a very good question. Well, it can be both, actually. I think so. These are very difficult questions. I'm quite careful. I don't want to, be very difficult to answer that one also.
Yeah.
So I leave it there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're getting a few more general questions. So I see that Diana has joined us. So maybe we should go into a more open discussion where you can both comment if you like. We have a question here that says, how do you think teachers and others can change their communication style to better meet gifted students' emotional and intellectual needs? Any specific communication strategies you would suggest?
I think that there has to be a change in focus, that we start to focus also advanced students in general. And that is not something that is easily done, because teachers have a lot of pressure on them that all students should reach the sort of the lowest level for a grade that's passed. And in Sweden, that's grade E, and the top grade is A. So as long as the teachers have this big pressure that all students should at least reach grade E, then maybe a lot of focus will be on sort of, well, having everyone reaching that. So there must be more room for also focusing other ability levels. And it's not something that teachers can do alone. So they need support. They need support from the educational context and from the system, really. So it's nothing you can sort of give to the single teacher. It has to be done in a wider perspective, I think.
Yes.
And also teacher education is also an important step in this, but it's not only the only solution to the question.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that it's kind of a system level problem. I totally agree with Diana that it cannot be on one teacher's shoulders. It's a whole system that has to be changed. We have to mention gifted students explicitly, for example, in the curriculum or the legislation, so it would be so much easier to meet their needs also. Yeah.
There is a question that I think relates to this, One person asked, do you think gifted and average students should be co-educated, or are you in favor of the special schools for gifted students? It seems that catering for students of different abilities, I guess, within the same classroom can be really hard.
I think that depends on what access to different teaching strategies the individual teacher has. So it's not always necessary to have separate, classes or schools, but sometimes that might be good as an addition to be integrated in the class that everyone goes to. So maybe you can have a bit of both, I say, in the Swedish lagom way. So you have to sort of, I think, look at the individual. What does this individual need, and how can we provide that for that individual? Is it to add something extra, or how can we design the instruction in an inclusive educational setting so that it fits both advanced students but also average and struggling students? How can we differentiate the instruction being given? And that's also a challenge for many teachers, because as a teacher, you both need knowledge on how to differentiate, but you also need resources and support from the system. So again, you cannot put this on the single teacher's shoulders, as we said before.
Yeah, and also in Finland we have this inclusive, very egalitarian and inclusive school system. I think it is a good one. We perhaps should not have these separate schools for gifted and average students, but we should provide gifted students with more opportunities, specific opportunities, and we also can use measures such as acceleration, which could mean like skipping a grade or starting entering a school 1 year earlier. This is something that our legislation already allows us to do, but they are not somehow used very often, at least in Finland. So there are specific measures that could be used more often.
Of course, but then of course this may have social implications, because then we get these different levels of development, social development, and maybe we should actually, one thing you mentioned, Taina, was that everybody has been told how great the teacher education is in Finland. So I became a bit despondent when, even in the fantastic Finnish system, that there is no sort of special allowance for education on how to teach gifted children. What what can we do? Is there room teachers have limited capacities. They only have, each class for 1 or 2 hours a day or something like that. Is there even room? Is it possible to introduce more differentiation or?
Yeah, I want to emphasize that all teachers in Finland at all school levels, they are educated to kind of differentiate and to meet the needs of individual students, of all students. But it's more about the resources, and perhaps also it can be considered a taboo. Sometimes gifted education is considered elitist or unnecessary, but it's also about the resources. We should perhaps the first step is to talk about this issue more at schools, in the society, in the webinars like this. So it's very important. It's the first step. Kind of change the attitude a little bit, and then have more resources, time and money, simply. Yeah, and we need also principals at schools who are kind of have positive idea about what gifted education could be at its best. So it could be also quite small things that we could do that also are quite impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another question. Could speech therapists help? Because I am one, and we are increasingly asked to train teachers in communication strategies for different specific groups or students. I want to help. Any thoughts on that? Have you worked with speech therapists in the...
Is this, Diana, your area?
Since
I'm a
I'm
physics person.
Yeah, I'm a former elementary school teacher and also a special education teacher in reading and writing and language development. And I've been working in the Swedish compulsory school from pre-class to grade 9, which is the entire compulsory school, and also as a teacher trainer at Stockholm University in those areas and reading and writing difficulties as well. So yes, I have worked with speech therapists, but that then focusing struggling students of different, in different topics. So not in relation to advanced students. I have not worked with speech therapists. But I think in general, there is definitely room for more speech therapists, at least in the Swedish school. But I have not thought about how to work with a speech therapist in relation to advanced students. But I do think that there is much that we can do a lot with the resources that we have. For example, that's why I would like that's why I wanted to test this model, for example, because it doesn't cost anything, but you have to change mindset maybe, because like this model we tried during so-called silent reading, and that's more or less practiced in grade 1 to 6 every day in Swedish classrooms, but also to use that time as an instruction time, explicit instruction time to read, for example, advanced students, and to motivate them to keep their reading interest and not to, lose their reading interest because the instruction is not targeting their level. So I think you can do a lot, but maybe you need support and sort of a direction and where to find that. And because to find it might be hard for a teacher, because as Janne said, there are a lot of things on the teacher's table that needs to be done every day. So if we as researchers can help and to provide insight or models, whatever it can be, I think that's really important that we do, that we contribute to, and to also, as Taina said, to talk about this topic more and to make this group more visible.
I think that's a very good point, to make it that it's not only an issue to lift up the less gifted, but also help lift up the gifted. Anyways, my personal opinion. Okay, I think we will conclude with a big question, and then you can then you can see if we can come up with some high-level recommendations here. So, to both of you, if you had all the power, what would you do differently in the education system? What would be the top 2 or 3 things that you would change?
If I may start, I would definitely educate teachers. We need teacher training in gifted education in Finland. Then I would have giftedness and gifted students explicitly mentioned in the educational documents, such as curriculum and legislation. And third, I would like to increase the use of these kind of specific provisions like acceleration and enrichment, from which Diana talked about a lot in schools. And for these, we need, again, teacher education. So it goes back there. That's the most important thing currently, I think, educating teachers.
Thank you. Diana, any famous last words?
Yeah, I agree with Tanya, and I think that it would be really important to address these students in the curriculum. Now in Sweden, they're not explicitly addressed, and I think that's a really big first and important first step to make the group more visible. And also, I agree, teacher training is really important as well, because we need to provide our teachers with the with tools how to work with this group as well. But then to make that happen in schools, we also need to provide our schools with resources. So it's then on a political level, like what can our politicians do to make this come true? Actually, we have to give the teachers the resources to make it come true.
Thank you. I think that was a good place to end. Taina and Janne, thank you so much for being here with us today. This was very interesting, and I can see from the reactions that the audience found it very interesting as well. We're very happy that you would come here to share some of your results from your research, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of this in the future as well. So thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And before we close, just a small encouragement to our audience. Again, if you want to support the fund or just learn more about the fund, you can go to our website, nordicmensafund.org, or you can also follow us on Facebook, also Nordic Mensa Fund, so you can get news on future events and support. So thank you very much for today, and hope to see you again next year on 1st of October. Thank you. Bye for now.